Hello BookTube, it's Joshua here, and I'm going to be reading you a poem by William Wordsworth titled, When First I Journeyed Hither. When first I journeyed hither, to a home and dwelling of my own, it was a cold and stormy season, and from week to week the pathways and the public roads were clogged with frequent showers of snow. Upon a hill, at a short distance from my house, there stands a stately fir-grove, whither I was wont to hasten. For within its shade I found Commodious harbour, a sequestered nook or cloister with an unencumbered floor. Here in safe covert on the shallow snow, and sometimes on a speck of visible earth, the redbreast near me hopped, nor was I loth to sympathize with vulgar coppice birds that hither came. A single beech tree grew within this grove of firs, and on the fork of that one beech there was a thrush's nest, a last year's nest conspicuously built at such small elevation from the ground that even an unbreeched boy might look into it. Sure sign, I thought, that they who in that house of nature and of love had made their home among the fir trees, all the summer long dwelt in a quiet place. And oftentimes a few sheep, stragglers of a scattered flock, were my companions and would look at me from the remotest outskirts of the grove, some nook where they had made their final stand, huddling together from two fears, the fear of me and of the storm. Full many an hour here did I lose. But in this grove, the trees had by the planter been so crowded each upon on the other, and withal had thriven in such perplexed array, that I in vain between their stems endeavoured to find out a length of open space where I might walk backwards and forwards, long as I had liking, in easy and mechanic thoughtlessness. And, for this cause, I loved the shady grove less than I wished to love a place so sweet. I have a brother. Many times the leaves have faded. Many times the spring has touched the heart of bird and beast since from the shores of Windermere, and from Esthwaite's cheerful lake and her grey cottages, from all the life and beauty of his native hills, he went to be a sea-boy on the barren seas. When we had been divided 14 years, at length he came to sojourn a short while beneath my roof, nor had the sun twice set before he made discovery of this grove, whither from that time forward he repaired with daily visitation. Other haunts meanwhile were mine, but from the sultry heat, one morning, chancing to betake myself to this forsaken covert, there I found a hoary pathway traced around the trees, and winding on with such an easy line along a natural opening, that I stood much wondering at my own simplicity, that I myself had ever failed in search of what was now so obvious. With a sense of lively joy did I behold this path beneath the fir trees, for at once I knew that by my brother's steps it had been traced. My thoughts were pleased within me to perceive that hither he had brought a finer eye, a heart more wakeful, that more loath to part from place so lovely he had worn the track, one of his own deep paths, by pacing here with that habitual restlessness of foot wherewith a sailor measures o'er and o'er his short domain upon the vessel's deck while she is travelling through the dreary seas. When thou hadst gone away from Esthwaite's shore, and taken thy first leave of these green hills and rocks that were the playground of thy youth, year followed year, my brother, and we two, conversing not, knew little in what mould each other's minds were fashioned, and at length, when once again we met in Grasmere Vale, between us there was little other bond than common feelings of fraternal love. But thou, a schoolboy, to the sea hadst carried undying recollections. Nature there was with thee. She who loved us both, she still was with thee, even so thou didst become a silent poet. from the solitude of the vast sea didst bring a watchful heart still couchant, an inevitable ear, and an eye practiced like a blind man's touch. Back to the joyless ocean thou art gone, and now I call the pathway by thy name, and love the fir-grove with a perfect love. Thither do I repair when cloudless suns shine hot, or winds blow troublesome and strong. And there I sit at evening, when the steep of Silver Howe, and Grasmere's silent lake, and one green island gleam between the stems and the close firs, a visionary scene. And while I gaze upon this spectacle of clouded splendor, on this dreamlike sight of solemn loveliness, I think on thee, my brother, and on all which thou hast lost. Nor seldom, if I rightly guess, when thou, muttering the verses which I muttered first among the mountains, through the midnight watch art pacing to and fro the vessel's deck in some far region, here, while o'er my head, at every impulse of the moving breeze, the fir-grove murmurs with a sea-like sound, alone I tread this path, for aught I know timing my steps to thine, and with a store of indistinguishable sympathies, mingling most earnest wishes for the day when we, and others whom we love, shall meet a second time in Grasmere's happy vale. So that was the poem. I have a very personal liking for it. I'm not sure that is as great as some of his other poems, like Tintern Abbey and like his great ode, Intimations of Immortality. But I like it. I find it pretty charming, especially in that last bit where he talks about when he talks about him walking in the path that his brother had worn down, and his brother walking on a boat, and them possibly timing their steps to each other. I think that's a pretty interesting thought, and as a whole, I just find the poem to be very, very heartfelt and warm and sincere, which I like a lot. But thank you for watching BookTube, and goodbye.